Greetings, class. Hey, Christian, Jacob, Max, Jacob, how are y'all?
Doing well. How are you?
I am well. Hey, Max, it's really good to see you. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, I can.
Hey, Max, have you selected a thinker?
I was thinking of Aquinas.
Okay. And were you in the last class, by the way?
I was for like the first 15 minutes, and then my internet went out, so I spent the remainder of that trying to fix my router.
So sorry about that. And that's why I put them on my YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm planning to rewatch that.
Awesome. Okay. I am going to schedule you right now. I'm going to schedule you right now. Yes. And is Malia with us at the moment? All right. I'll take that as a no. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. Christian, wait, sorry, Max. Is it Max or Charles? Forgive me.
I go by Max.
All right. And Max, what is your last name again? Forgive me.
Marable.
All right, cool. I'm going to schedule you for Monday, March 22nd for your 10 to 15 minute presentation. Okay. Can you hear me, Max?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, cool. Good. So I've put that on the reading schedule. I'm going to upload the new reading schedule to Canvas really quick. And then I want to say something about the due date for these papers, because I had a question from Mirka last class. Mirka, can you hear me right now? Mirka's not with us either. Okay, let me upload the new reading schedule real quick. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Boom. Ooh, I hope this is the right one. And I'm going to have to add it twice. I hate this. Let's see if this is the right one. I shouldn't be doing this right now. I'm wasting time. Yay, that is the right one. Now I got to do it for the other class, the other section. Okay. Y'all, thank you for letting me do that. Is Mirka or Malia on the line with us at the moment? All right. So y'all, Mirka asked a question this last class about paper due dates. Y'all remember that? And so I just wanted to pull up real quick the essay guide that I gave y'all several weeks ago and point this out to you. You see what it says right here? Can y'all see that? Due dates. Yes. If your chosen thinker lands before March 24 on the reading schedule, your paper will be due on March 24. If after, your paper will be due on the last day of class. Cool?
Yeah, so how can I check
where my reader is?
So I just up, so you can check that
Oh, okay, I see.
on the reading schedule. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, you're before March 24. Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
so thank you.
Yes, sir. And I think
What if it's on the day of? Because you said that
yeah.
you would like for things to be on Wednesday, and I think that 3/22, I think the 24th is going to be a Wednesday.
Yeah. I want it to be due on that day, but if you need to have some flex, if you need some, if you need more time, email me. Okay.
Okay, that works.
Excellent. Okay, y'all, thanks so much. And I'm very excited about our class today. We've got 2 presentations. First up is Christian. Is that right, Christian?
Yes, I'm ready.
Excellent. We are ready when you are.
All right, so I didn't create a visual aid. I just have my notes pulled up and I'll just start talking.
Okay. And you know, I mean, it's cool if you want to leave your screen blocked out.
Oh, I can pull up my screen.
All right.
Just give me 1 second here.
Cool.
No, my notes aren't like pretty or anything. But
No, it's all good.
so share screen, found it. Oh, I cannot share screen while another person is sharing their screen.
Oh, well, then don't share your screen. Just let me see your face, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can move to my phone because I don't have a camera on my computer.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. Okay, awesome. You just go as you're led, and it's all good. Grateful.
Okay. So I chose Augustine, and the reason being is because he influenced Western philosophy and Christianity. So he did write Confessions, but he also wrote other things that influenced that, like The City of God or On Christian Doctrine. So, interesting fact about him, he is the patron saint of brewers, printers, and theologians. So, since we're kind of studying religion, he's kind of our patron saint. Um, so, even though like a lot of his works are based off of religion and like answering biblical questions, including Confessions, since he affected philosophy so much, he's actually kind of interesting for everybody to study, not just Christians. So the Confessions is pretty long. It's 13 books, and the first 9 books cover his life, as well as his philosophy and theology, and just basically his take on the Bible. But I am interested in the last 4 books because they kind of move away. Sorry, what was that?
I was just saying that's interesting. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So the last 4 books, they move away towards the autobiography thing. So those are the ones I'm looking at right now. So and like the ideas in this book are like really unique to him, but also you can see how some of them like I'll be talking about it, but like especially in book 11, some of the ideas that he has actually are ideas that a lot of people hold now. So you can kind of see how like he became mainstream over time, even though some of these ideas are really weird. So starting with book 10, it was about what he thought about memory. So Plato thought that learning was the process of the soul remembering what it already knew, because the soul existed before birth. So Augustine had a similar idea, but he was thinking memory as unconscious knowledge. And then book 11 is about time. He begins with like questions. Augustine begins with questions over Genesis and the creation story. He argues that God did not make the heavens and the earth in a literal sense, like the universe. Like he didn't literally make it, but it's more of the Genesis is more spiritual than literal. because some people, like some people in Christianity, they argue that the Bible is literal. Like not many people today, but some people used to. But it makes more sense when you think about the creation story, like story of Adam and Eve being the first two people. That makes more sense figuratively than literally, since biologically we know two people can't be enough to populate the earth, right? So, but of course, like that could be controversial in Augustine's time if you say something is metaphorical. So, since God is eternal, the beginning of creation is the source of all things, but not for God, right? So, like, this is when he starts getting into semantics about like how we can experience time, but that doesn't mean God experiences time. So Christ is he says Christ is the beginning of wisdom, right? So Christ is how Christians get to know the wisdom of God. So one criticism that Augustine answers is that if God like made the decision to create us or create the universe, that means he had to change his mind at one point. And how can he change his mind if God is eternal and unchanging? So he thinks Augustine replies like, for God there is no time, so creation is like instant and eternal. So like he argues time is like a byproduct of creation rather than something that always has happened, that is always happening, so one thing that made me think about is like the 7-day creation story is like, well, God took 7 days or 6 days to create the earth and rested on the seventh, right? If I'm remembering that right. So that would also be another reason for the Genesis being figurative or spiritual rather than literal. Because like if God doesn't, experience the passing of time, how would he create it in 7 days, right? Augustine didn't write about that as far as I could tell, but that's just what I was thinking about while I was reading. So Augustine argues that time does not exist using the idea of past, present, and future. So like, for example, right, we can't really measure the present, right? Because if we measure time, it immediately becomes the past and the future. Like the now is happening right now. You can't really measure it. So if past is, time that's past, and present is time that's right now, and the future is time to come, Augustine like doesn't really have an answer for time, for what it really is, but he just thinks that like we know it's moving forward. So will it just move forward until nothing else exists, since it's always passing and we can never measure it? So that I was thinking like that kind of like if we were to apply that to science, that line of thinking with science, that's almost like the heat death of the universe, right? Like after enough time passes, there's nothing more that can happen, right? Like no more movement in the universe. So book 12 brings together the ideas of his memory theory from book 10 and his time theory in book 11, to like basically strengthen his point. So it does these last few books definitely get into semantics about like creation and just stuff that people either didn't argue about before or like sorry so like for me, the main issue that I'm having with creating like a thesis against it is because like his arguments are very strongly rooted in his belief in God and Christianity, right? And since theology is like super subjective, if I were to make an argument, it would almost have to be a religious argument. So, but I would think my thesis that I want to make would be about how he influenced how we currently interpret religion and Christianity. Because like as I was saying earlier with like say the Adam and Eve story, right? How it makes more sense that's spiritual than literal. Like no one really not many people think the Adam and Eve story like literally happened, but it's more of a metaphorical. Like that's one thing that people believe today. So I think my thesis, what I would want it to be, is how Augustine's philosophies and the whole book of Confessions affects what we believe today, like in general. So, but I don't think I'll be arguing against him per se, just more so how he affected us, because just given how subjective like theory and religion is, right? So
Hey, Christian,
yes, sir.
let me say this, like you've now spoken for 10 minutes. And if you want, you can go for up to 5 more minutes, no problem. But if you want to stop now, I mean, you've totally fulfilled your time requirement.
I'll stop now because I'm running out of things to say.
Great. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to say a couple of things to the whole class about what Christian just did. And then I want to respond briefly to Christian about this stuff. Now, is Mirka with us at the moment?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry. Oh, hi, Mirka. How are you?
Good. Hi.
Good. Hey, nice to see you. You're going to present to us, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so give me, great. You have about 5 more minutes before you're going to start, so it's all good. But y'all, I want to say a couple of general things about what Christian did. I thought Christian did a great job just then. What I think is cool is that he sort of did 2 things. Number one, he just talked about the material. You know what I mean? He just talked about the content of the confessions. In a way, like, imagine that he recorded everything he said about the confessions. You could almost say that recording would be the rough draft of his paper. Does that make sense? So that's great. The other thing he did was toward the end, especially, he stopped talking about the material of the confessions and he started reflecting on what he wanted to do in the paper. Does that make sense? Can you see how those are 2 different things? Like Michael, can you see how those are 2 different things? On the one hand, talking about the material of the text, but then on the other hand, reflecting on what he's trying to do in his paper. Can you see how those are 2 different things?
Yes.
Yeah. Those are basically the 2 things that I want you to do in these presentations. So I thought that was really, really good. And then he talked for 10 minutes, which is great. I want you to talk for at least 10 minutes, but you can talk to up to 15 minutes. No worries at all. Okay. Now, y'all, those are my remarks sort of to the class. I'm just thinking about people who are going to be presenting today and beyond. What I want to do now is say a couple of things. I want to respond very briefly, and this is dangerous because like I could easily eat up the rest of the class just responding to Christian, right? And I don't want to do that for many reasons. But Christian, I want to talk to you real quick, okay? So can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. First off, thank you for that. I took some notes. I'm going to take notes on all these. First off, I mean, let me just say, like, I think you're well on your way to making a really good grade on this paper. I mean, at the risk of being a bad professor, I would say you're well on the way to making at least like a 90. Okay.
Thanks.
Ish. But let me just say, like, okay, I want to say this. First off, you mentioned the city of God, and I'm talking both to Christian and to everyone. Y'all remember that big quote that I've been emphasizing, philosophus verum amator Dei est. The true philosopher is the lover of God. You remember that quote? that comes from the city of God. And I've sort of been wanting to say that, and I keep forgetting. Christian, it's great that you're focusing on the last 4 books. Like I think that's really cool. Yeah. Y'all, whenever I broke it up, did I say, okay, interesting. So yeah, you're focusing on the last 4 books. I think that it would also make sense to focus on the last 3 books, but Christian, I totally, given what you said, that you think that book 12 sort of combines books 10 and 11, memory and time, I think that that's great. I think that if anyone else is going to write on Augustine, I think it would also make sense to focus on the last 3 books, but that's great. Now, Christian, you said that for Augustine, the soul existed before birth. I just want to caution you on this. I mean, y'all, I'm not going to treat y'all like professional philosophers or theologians or grad students or something. So it's not like I would fail Christian if he sort of just stated that. But I do, like, part of what we're doing here is just learning. We're just talking about Augustine and the Confessions. And Christian, I want to caution you. I'm not threatening you. I'm not saying you might make a bad grade. I'm just thinking with you about Augustine, and I want to caution you on this view that the soul existed before birth. You should, for Augustine. Are you sure about that? I mean, that doesn't seem clear to me. I mean, certainly Plato did. That's why we talked about his doctrine of the transmigration of the soul, aka reincarnation.
Well, now that you're warning me about this, I'll be sure to like reread what made me think that.
Yeah, awesome. In fact, that leads me to another question. Did you is the main thing that you're going off of very simply your reading of those 4 books of the Confessions?
So I did go a little bit off of my readings, and
Okay.
also just a few other like interpretations of it online.
Okay, cool. And so, great. I was going to be like, let me just say in general, I think that it's super awesome to focus on the text itself. Like, I don't even have a requirement that y'all use secondary sources. It's fine to use secondary sources. The warning that I would issue everyone is beware of the temptation to rely only or even predominantly on secondary sources and fail to read the primary source carefully. Are you with me?
Yes.
And let me just say as a side note to other people who are going to present, like, I think it'd be awesome for you to talk about your secondary sources or in your presentation. In other words, to talk about what you're relying on. Are you relying on your reading of the primary text, or are you relying on some secondary source or sources? And if so, what are those sources? That makes for a good presentation, I would say. But moving on with my response to Christian, yeah, time does not exist. Okay, cool. I really like the notion of time as a byproduct of creation. I think that that's a good way of saying it in terms of book 11. Let me say, I want to say 2 more things, and then I'm going to shut up and we'll turn our attention to Mirka. I want to say 2 more things to you, Christian. Number 1, you mentioned science. So that nothing wrong with that. That's good. In other words, you mentioned science. You talked about like the heat death of the universe. No problem at all doing that. But keep in mind that, part of what it means to do philosophy, and part of what I'm wanting all of my students to do, both in my intro class, but also in this medieval class, is to question your assumptions and to be very attentive to the meaning of terms, especially if those terms are in some sense contentious. Are you with me?
Yeah, I can see how that was a bit off topic.
No, I'm not even saying that. What I am saying is this: the meaning of the term science is an issue. You know, I have some remarks that I'm going to lecture on the confessions in this class after Mirka finishes. And one of the terms that's going to pop up in my lecture is the word science. But you just need to know that whenever you or Jacob Dunn or Mason uses or Matt Bolter uses the word science, we mean something different than Augustine meant. Because what you and I mean is modern science, or you might call it natural science. Like I went to UT Austin for my undergrad, and they have the College of Natural Sciences, right? What is that? That's biology, chemistry, astronomy, et cetera, et cetera. What a pre-modern thinker would call that stuff is natural philosophy. The pre-moderns mean something different by science than we do in the modern English-speaking world. What we tend to mean is stuff like empirical observation, the scientific method, like you learned in high school, a modern department of biology in a college. That's what we mean by science. It's not wrong. We just need to be aware that what the pre-moderns meant by scientia, which is a Latin term, the Greek term is episteme, is different. And really, like the starting point of figuring out what they meant would simply be this. They mean knowledge. Knowledge. What is knowledge? Well, that's a different, we don't have time to talk about that right now. But think about the word knowledge, the English word knowledge versus the English word science. And I'd be willing to bet that you sort of imagine two different things there. Science is stuff that you can put in a test tube and measure and come up with theories, right? Knowledge includes that stuff probably, but it might not be limited to that stuff. So for example, do you think that Justice Roberts on the Supreme Court has knowledge of the law? Probably, but it's not scientific knowledge, right?
Right. Because
Okay,
you can't really put knowledge of the law into a test tube.
Right. But guess what, Jacob Dunn and everyone else? It is knowledge for Augustine or for a pre-modern thinker. It is science. The thing that Justice Roberts has of the law, they would call science. We would not, they would. See, what that means is that they have a different understanding of the word science than we do. And I just want to get you, I'm talking to Christian, but all of us, that's the work of philosophy, is being attentive to the meaning of contentious terms that maybe we're assuming some things about them that are not necessarily shared by pre-modern thinkers. Okay, so those are some comments just about the word science. Again, Christian, I'm not rebuking you. I'm not saying that you did anything wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk about science. I think you should. I want you to talk about it in such a way that you show me that you are aware that Augustine is not talking about what we mean by modern natural science.
Okay.
He does talk about what we mean by modern natural science. He does talk about that. It's just that he doesn't call it science.
Okay, thank you. I just wrote down your main points, and I'll be sure to
It's all good.
those.
It's all good, bro. I'm really just having a conversation with you in the class and not trying to micromanage your paper. But I want to say one more thing in that same spirit, and here I am. Maybe I am coming closer to rebuking you, but whatever. I guess the way to put it would be, I do have a stronger reaction against this statement of yours, and that is, quote, theology is super subjective. A couple things to keep in mind. First off, actually, I have three things. Number one, that would be a vintage example of the kind of assumption that is very prevalent in our society that I want you to question. What I try to do with my philosophy students is get them to question their assumptions. But before you can question your assumptions, you have to identify them. And so that assumption that theology is subjective, it's very common. It's kind of like art, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's it's this idea that art is just a sort of a matter of preference. Some people like Pepsi, some people like Coke. I like Cubism. Some other people like whatever. Byzantine icons. No, that I would say not only is that not true for theology, it's not even true for art, although it's a prevalent assumption that we have. But so I would encourage you to question that assumption. Like, what makes me think that theology is subjective, and can I say anything in support of that statement? But then, even at a more basic level, I'm going to repeat something that I said about science, namely, what do you mean by theology? Because you see, again, theology is a contentious term. And actually, this is something that we've already discussed. I've told y'all that the meaning of the term philosophy and theology shifts. Now, what is it that causes the shift?
Aristotle.
Yeah, more specifically, the rediscovery of Aristotle in the Latin-speaking West. Right. And really, I've spent more time with you guys and with you ladies, lady singular. I've spent more time with y'all talking about the way the meaning of the term philosophy shifts than I have the way the meaning of the term theology shifts. And the reason I've done that is because it's easier. It's easier to talk about how the meaning of the term philosophy shifts. So let me just rehearse that. Augustine says, the true philosopher is the lover of God. Verum philosophus amator Dei est. See, that makes it seem like any good Christian disciple is a philosopher. And that's basically what Augustine means. And on that account of things, you don't need to be educated to be a philosopher. As long as you love Jesus in your heart, kind of deal, you're a philosopher, okay? But by the time Aristotle gets rediscovered, a philosopher is one who follows the philosopher. And who is the philosopher, Jacob Dunn? Uh-oh. Go ahead.
Aristotle.
That's right. Boom, Aristotle. So now, y'all, pause. Can everyone see how the meaning of the term philosophy shifts once Aristotle is rediscovered? Does anyone not see that? Okay. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the meaning of the term theology changes. And here's what's kind of crazy. But look, don't lose sight of the fact that all of this is an elaboration on why Christian, in his paper, needs to be aware of the fact that the meaning of the term theology is contentious. All right? You can't begin to argue that theology is super subjective if you don't know what you mean by theology. And if you don't talk about the term theology responsibly. Okay. Guess what Augustine, guess what Augustine means by theology. And again, this is in the city of God. He basically means, this is crazy, philosophy. Okay, let me put it to you like this. You remember Metaphysics 12:7, Aristotle's development of the unmoved mover. Do y'all remember that? You know, all that stuff about simplicity, and it sounded a lot like Parmenidean being. That is what Augustine means by theology. And actually, even today, you will hear thinkers talk about natural theology. What is natural theology? Natural theology is this notion of thinking about God independently of revelation. Now, what do I mean by revelation? Well, for now, here's what I mean. What is this?
The Bible.
It's a Bible, right? This is basically what I mean by revelation for now. Okay? Natural philosophy is thinking about God, theos, like Aristotle does in the Metaphysics, completely independently of the Bible. In other words, on the basis of natural reason alone. Are you with me so far? See, that's not what your Sunday school teacher does in your Baptist in your Baptist Sunday school class when you were a little kid. No, they're reading the Bible, right? They're kind of like my sweet mama who died 2 years ago, God bless her. She says, I don't care what the Bible means. I just want to know what it says. All right, that's like the sweet little Sunday school teacher, God bless them. That is not what Aristotle's doing in the Metaphysics. What Aristotle's doing in the Metaphysics has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. It has nothing to do with the burning bush. It has nothing to do with Jesus of Nazareth. It's pure reason, or at least that's what he would say. And he might be right. It's pure reason. That's called natural theology. Now, it seems to you and me like philosophy because we think Aristotle, oh, philosophy. That is an example of what Augustine meant by theology. It's kind of like philosophy about God. You might call it philosophical theology. Many people would call it philosophical theology. That's Augustine's notion of theology. Are you with me? Now, by the way, he has other, he actually in the City of God, he has 3 definitions of theology, and I just gave you one of them, natural theology. The other 2 are basically, I'm probably not going to be able to remember them. I'm just going to say mythological theology, myth-based theology. Basically like Zeus and Poseidon and company, but then also the gods of the polis, the gods of like the official gods of the Roman Empire, like Artemis and Jupiter and Saturn. Okay. This is what, in other words, now, okay. In other words, let me ask you this. So are you with me? Augustine, when Augustine talks about theology, one of the things he's talking about is like Artemis and Jupiter. Are you with me so far? Question, do you think Augustine likes that stuff or thinks that stuff is bad? What do you think?
What conflicts with the Bible and the teachings of God is, I don't know if he necessarily thinks it's bad in every regard per se. Well, for example, he reads.
But if I held a gun to your head and said, tell me if it's good or bad, which would you say?
Bad.
You are correct. And yet that is what he calls theology. The other thing that he means by theology is what Aristotle does, right? Deducing God's existence from reason alone. Now, as we're going to see when we get to Book 7 of the Confessions, he doesn't think that that's all bad, but y'all, he thinks that those are both. Let me just ask you, which do you think he likes better? Theology, which I've just described to you, or philosophy? Which would Augustine like more?
Philosophy.
Didn't you say they're the same thing to him?
I did not say that they're the same thing to him, Jacob. This is complicated stuff. I mean, you might want to watch the YouTube video later. What I may have said is something like, what he means by theology is what we mean by philosophy. I may have said something like that, but I did not say that what Augustine means by theology is the same thing as what Augustine means by philosophy. I did not say that. Okay. So whoever said that he likes philosophy better, you are correct, because philosophy is is loving God. But y'all, by the time we get to Thomas Aquinas and Bonaventure, after the rediscovery of Aristotle, the meanings shift. And now philosophy no longer means the loving God. It now means what? Following whom?
Aristotle.
That is correct. That's what philosophy now means. Well, what in the heck does theology now mean? Well, it basically means what Augustine meant by philosophy, i.e., loving God based on the scriptures, although infused with the rational thought of Aristotle. So it's sort of both. Thomas Aquinas calls it sacra doctrina, sacred doctrine. I'm done with that. It's super complicated. Thanks for listening. Watch the YouTube video if you want. But back to Christian. You're awesome, Christian. Like I said, you're well on your way to doing well on this paper. I hope you're not stressed. I hope that you're intrigued.
No,
I'm
I'm
trying
not stressed at all. I wrote down everything you said just so I could be sure to think about it.
Awesome. And see, y'all, I view my job as a dopamine provider. Like, I'm just trying to get y'all to think. I'm trying to raise questions for you and set you on a journey to asking serious questions about what it means to be human and what's real. Okay. So, yeah. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mirka, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Listen, I'm ready when you are, and I'm grateful for your presenting to us today.
Okay. Okay, so I did a small PowerPoint.
Oh, great.
Yeah, 'cause I
Okay.
thought it would be better if I could. Give me 1 second.
Take your time.
It's not letting me. Okay, there we go. So. Ah. Okay, it's not letting me. Okay,
What are you trying to do?
there we go. I couldn't get it.
Sweet.
Okay, let me move you guys to the side. Okay, so my presentation will be on St. Augustine, the Confessions. So I did like a little overview of what the book has. I wrote that the book is kind of written in a prayer to God. He does mention like he is talking to God the whole time. He is focused on like one's memory. I kind of got the same view as Christian, that he did believe in reincarnation, because we did go through that in the other class, and I do have the notes about it, but I couldn't find the page that quite said that. And he did mention that one of men's goals is to praise God, or yeah, he did say that, praise God in another way. I forgot the word. And he's kind of asking questions to God throughout his whole book. I think he froze. Is he still here? Is he still there?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I
It's
don't see
frozen
it.
on my screen.
Yeah, he's gone.
It's recording, so you could probably watch it later.
Just keep going, because this is to you guys. So it's from a book that, describing what he learned through life from God, technically. The pages, the book that I was kind of into was 11, and it's paragraph 5, page 223. He said that if he could ask something to Moses, because he wanted to know about the creation of God, the creation of the world, he would ask him personally, even though if he spoke like different languages and all that. And it's really weird. He's technically like, another book that I was kind of into was that book 13. He does mention how women are intellectually smart as men, but yet they will always be submissive because woman is made for men, which is kind of like something that, for me as a woman, I don't believe in, because in the Hebrew Bible, in the New Testament, it's like every spouse should be submissive to her husband. And I feel like we don't really see that as much anymore. We're going to different thoughts, which also brings me into the questions I have for him, which is like, why would he ask Moses and not Christ or God as to how the world was created? Because Moses wasn't there. It was first Adam and Eve. So there's no way like Moses will actually know unless Moses talked to God, which he also like, talks about how can he know what Moses is saying is true if Moses could lie to him? Like, people could lie to other people. So how does he find Moses to be a good source? And back to the reincarnation, if it's true and we all lived in paradise, which I was obviously going back to Christian, even though he said Christian might be wrong over the reincarnation thing. My question is, if we are reincarnated, why do we suffer once more? Like, why do we put back on earth to suffer if we're already in paradise? Like, are we being punished? And how can he speak for all men, that all men want to praise God? I feel like that doesn't make sense in a way, because not all men, like, my number one goal in life is to be successful, not to praise God. I do believe in God, but it's not my number one priority. I don't pray every day. And I know some people who don't. Some previous queens didn't even believe that much in God. They try to change whole religions to fit their own standard views. And then his thoughts on other religions. He does open the book by saying how does one know that God wants to be called by a certain name? For example, what if he wants to be called like God or Jehovah or anything else? How do we know we're speaking to the same God, or we're mentioning by the right name? And the thought again, he speaks about reincarnation once again. So he does accept other religions, because other religions, they're reincarnated, like in Chinese culture, you can come back as another thing, or as the Islamic culture, if you do good, you're going to be rewarded with other good, virgins and what. And in my research, I did do background research on St. Augustine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I try to look up how he was raised and all that. Obviously, he was part of the Romans. He was like the major part of them in their culture. The challenging is, since I am the only girl here, obviously I have like different point of views than you guys, especially from the professor. So like it's different to understand from a man's point of view, and like a man's point that it was back then. But I'm trying to like place myself in his shoes and see like everything he's seeing. And then the surprise will be like how he covers almost all aspects of life, like when man was created to the point where man dies. Like, we go to paradise, all of his points of views. And I believe that should be it. And I don't know if I did the whole 15 minutes because he's not here.
I guess we could all just tear it apart since he's not here.
I know. I waited so long for saying.
I'm just
I
kidding.
do have a
That
thing
was
about
good.
Moses.
That was really good.
At least I don't get criticized a lot.
If I remember correctly, I think Moses did write Genesis.
Yeah, because he actually quotes it. He goes like Genesis 1.1 that he would ask Moses since he wrote it.
Yeah. So
But
that's why he'd write that's why he would ask Moses. But I'm also agree with you. Like, why wouldn't I mean, if you're there, why don't you just ask God?
Yeah,
Because he's the
like,
one
you
who
know,
did it.
God or Adam. Adam was there first.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Ask somebody who was there, not somebody who wrote about it later.
Honestly, though, Adam was probably like super illiterate. I don't know. I think all of them were actually.
I don't know, because if you think about it, language is just like a noise. So like he would communicate.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think the Bible was like passed down orally and then like recorded later, where I could be like super wrong.
I don't know. That's kind of confusing though, because wouldn't, if God knows like what somebody's soul is thinking, he would probably communicate through him like mentally or whatever.
Yeah. No, fair point. Checkmate.
Yeah, I mean, because he communicates with a lot of different people in different ways.
Different languages.
And then, of course, in Revelations, talks about him speaking to people throughout all different languages and stuff like that. So I think that he would be able to understand what anybody or anything was trying to say.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't make me present again, because
Do it again.
he's like, I wasn't here, so.
Right.
Should we just leave or?
Well, does anyone know how Zoom recordings work? Because the admin powers were transferred to me, so I'm the one recording the stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Why you? Okay, like dead serious.
Did we text him? Did we call him or like?
Because I need
think-
to figure out how to like find it so I can send it to him.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it just stops recording automatically and it posts automatically on his YouTube, or he just goes on there and posts it himself.
So actually this happened to me for a different class, and what happened is like someone else became admin, and like after we all left the class, like he still was able to access the whole recording. So Max, I don't think you have like any responsibility. I think it still goes to him.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe just be careful as you're clicking exit in case it does give you a prompt to like share the recording.
He sent it.
Okay.
It was like, oops, I lost my Wi-Fi. Very sorry. Mirka, if you could email me your PowerPoint, I will look at it over and give you a grade.
He should let us grade it.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'd give you a free 100 right now.
Thanks, guys. Like, I waited for him to talk throughout the whole class, and I'm just like, crap.
I think you did pretty good. You know more about it than I did, so.
Yeah.
I was kind of scared. Like, he was just going to Christian, like, I don't believe he mentioned reincarnation. Like we talked about it in the last class. Like,
Look, I don't know what I'm talking about, so I wasn't too offended.
Yeah.
Christian, you're too chill, man. You need to get offended sometimes.
Well, if we're gonna leave, I'm probably gonna stop the recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's probably good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's about time anyway. I think